Welcome to the Anime Audiophile Podcast. Please like and subscribe for more. Thank you. Konoha Shinden, Steam Ninja Scrolls. Chapter 5, Divinity. The hanging lanterns were dimly illuminating the darkness of the night. The only thing I could hear was the rustling sound of the hot spring surging from the spring. Together with that sound, the steam was dancing in the faint light. When I looked up, following the steam, the starry sky was spreading way above my head. I surrendered myself to the warm hot spring, stared at the stars that were floating in the dark sky, and fell into a marvelous sensation just as if my own body was becoming one with the night. My hands and feet were gradually becoming numb. This sensation spread to my arms and legs, and in the end the silhouette of my whole body became fuzzy. In the silence, the only thing that was reflecting in my eyes was the sparkling starry sky. It seemed that my soul alone, which had been set free from my body, was drifting into the sea of stars, and before I became aware of it I was wrapped by a pleasant feeling of solitude. The deserted open-air bath taught me that loneliness wasn't solitude. I was soaking into a hot spring that had been gushing out copiously from way long before I was born. I was admiring alone the stars of the night that were shining on the other side of the sky, and I couldn't help but think that there were different kinds of solitude. There's the painful and bitter solitude that is loneliness, and the relaxing solitude you're able to enjoy because you're alone. That light of the stars that we were watching was the one of some years, 100 years, or maybe 100 million years before. I had heard that from my sensei, once. Apparently, even the light of the sun we're looking at is the one of 8 minutes before. Between the stars and the sun and me, there's a distance that takes that much time, even if you proceed at the speed of light. An eternal and far-away distance. However, it's not infinite. If the light keeps proceeding, there's also a distance it arrives to, sooner or later. Then, you witness it in the present moment. At a time like that, I was thinking about the solitude of the stars, which keep shining in the darkness. I was thinking about my own solitude, who was staring at them all alone. Then, I was thinking about the people who had looked up to the night sky all alone like this in this place just like me, some years, 100 years, or maybe much longer before. If stars and hot springs had something like memories, I wish I could learn what kind of people they were. Surely I'd have become good friend with those people. Instinctively, I dreamed about things like that. Mirai-san, you have pretty hair, I was told, sighing. I, who was staring absent-mindedly at the starry sky, was confused all of a sudden. Or really? However, it's completely unruly, and it's been giving me troubles since I was a child. Ah, I replied with a bitter smile. I had turned up in the open-air bath aiming to a period of time when a lot of people were sleeping, but that day I wasn't alone. No way. I don't mind curls at all. Or rather, it'd suit you even if you grew it much longer, wouldn't it? The surprised voice replied from right next to me. Yeah, well, I don't know about it, I answered vaguely while touching my hair with a wet hand. Since my hairstyle looked like my mother's, if I grew it much longer it'd look like my mother's when she was young, but I wondered if it would really suit me growing them more than that. I couldn't imagine it clearly because I had never grown my hair that long, but if it was longer than that, when I entered into a hot spring like this it'd seem troublesome. I involuntarily thought like Shikadai. Because the girl in front of me, Tatsumi-chan, had tied her hair together to enter into the hot spring. Apparently she absolutely has to untie her hair when she washes it, and she has to spend time even to dry her hair. Probably you need a great deal of time when you tame it, but I think it'd suit me, but I was sorry for Tatsumi-chan, but when I thought about that quite hard to say sensation when your wet hair stretched on the nape of your neck and your back, it seemed to me that my hairstyle was nice as it was now. First of all, it wasn't suited for me, a skillful kunoichi who's good at both fashion and training. I wasn't continuously told by those of my same age good-looking type rather than cute just for showing off. However, that was just between me and Tatsumi-chan. Because if you are a ninja, you just don't introduce yourself to people you've just met. So, I had met with Tatsumi-chan in this hot spring just now. We had both turned up in this hot spring purposely aiming at an hour in which people were sleeping. Probably there are people who think alike anywhere in the wide world, but the fact that we had unexpectedly met the same day, in the same place and at the same time maybe had been a little predestined. She was a person with similar tastes who enjoyed solitude as well. You could as well call her a comrade whom you could share your own secret time with. We were also the same age, and we immediately opened our hearts to one another. Or rather, it was a strange conversation because the two of us, who had met by chance in the open-air bath by night, stayed there in silence without uttering a word. As one would expect, it was awkward. When I said that I was traveling, Tatsumi-chan answered that it was the same for her. She had lost her mother, who was her only blood relative, just a few days before due to an illness. Now, she had returned to the hot spring that her mother said she wanted to go to when she was alive as a tribute for her. As one would expect, she was traveling taking her mother's spirit along. And, at the same time, there was probably also an ending and a beginning towards the soul itself in response to the fact that she had lost her only blood relative. There was also the fact that the face that she showed sometimes seemed to disappear faintly somewhere, and when I heard that she had lost her mother I could understand why. Surely anyone would do such face if they lost a close person. Ah, it's nice. The hot spring by night. Tatsumi-chan closed her eyes, looking as if she was feeling good. Her white and slender shoulders caught my eye. That kid wasn't a ninja, without doubt. I thought a thing like that for no particular reason. She'd never get hurt in a dangerous mission, nor die. She was a quite ordinary girl, who was born and raised at home. Although we are in a peaceful epoch, danger is an indispensable part of a mission. It's sad, but there are people who lose their relatives for that. I'm living in a world like this. However, even if they're not ninja, and haven't been in a war, people die for accidents or illness. Or maybe they die a natural death. That was the truth of the world and human life. It's natural. It was such a natural thing, and she, who was a quite ordinary girl, had become a person without a single relative in the world. It was an intolerable thought. However, the truth is that it's nothing but an event that all the living beings face sooner or later. Both the flowing hot spring and the stars sparkling in the night sky were naturally there. However, even they weren't eternal. If they thought about the miracles they could meet by chance here and now, people would live the present time with all their might, treating every instant with great care. Tomorrow, where are you going? I called out to Tatsumi-chan, who had her eyes closed. I was worried about her, who had said that she thought of crossing the country, aiming to the sea for the time being. That was also because in the village of the huge rock we had arrived some days ago, the Yugakure ninja had told me about the incident that was happening, that they were kidnapping young girls near the country border. However, apparently Tatsumi-chan hadn't heard that rumor, and tomorrow, I'll cross the mountain, she answered in a light tone. Isn't it dangerous? Look out, are there bandits or something? When I asked her this, Tatsumi-chan looked as if she was thinking about it. Even if you call it a mountain road, there are a lot of visitors besides me who are coming around here to sightsee, and as expected from the current times, there aren't things like bandits, right? Tatsumi-chan told me, and I agreed that it was surely like that. In a place where there was a lot of traffic of sightseeing tourists, it was unlikely that they'd leave lawless fellows like bandits at large. The land of hot water, which is a country that aims at becoming a sightseeing place, is especially famous for its good public order. Of course, pickpockets that aim at tourists and foul criminals of fraud haven't disappeared after all, but they say that thanks to the Yugakure ninja's continuous effort, even those have been decreasing year after year. Then, what the heck is this kidnapping the Yugakure ninja are investigating about? I wondered if it was no big deal, since they didn't even look disturbed by it. The way they were talking about it seemed as if they were investigating without wasting men for the thing itself, but what was going on? I was thinking about these things while staring absent-mindedly at the steam. In this country the public order is fine, so also a young girl that travels alone can relax. Tatsumi-chan made an innocent smile. Just when I thought that I wouldn't be able to see her face anymore the day after, I had a selfish feeling. Ironically, there's also a time when even the peaceful solitude when you're alone gets spoiled when you become two. It was pity, despite I had finally met with a girl of my same age to talk with. If only I could have traveled together with her. If only we could have gone along the way together. However, it was impossible. Tomorrow, you'll cross the mountain, you said, but it's actually today? I wish we could chatter much more, but we both better go to bed soon. I tried to say in a light tone on purpose, so that she wouldn't understand my feeling of reluctance. If we had gone out of the dressing room, the only thing left would have been going back each one to her own room and sleep. Probably, I wouldn't have been able to meet her face anymore. Because if morning came, I'd have my own journey, and she would have her own journey. I'm going now. I couldn't help but leave my feeling of attachment behind for good. I stood up to go towards the dressing room. That moment, the water made a splashing noise. As I had got up, Tatsumi-chan had grabbed my wrist. "Here, Tatsumi-chan." Tatsumi-chan was looking up to me with a gaze that looked as if she was clinging onto me. "I'm sorry, Mirai-san. I've told you a lie." Even if I was perplexed, when I sank my body in the hot water again with a splash, Tatsumi-chan's hand left me. The story that I visited hot springs in my mother's memory was different, really. After a moment, Tatsumi-chan stared straight at me as if she was deciding something. Then, "Mirai-san, do you know about that hot spring in which you can meet with the dead?" These utterly unexpected words burst out of her lips. That, how? I, who was shaking for a question that I'd never had imagined, stared at her, silently. I was thinking about going there after this. I couldn't understand well the meaning of the things that Tatsumi-chan was saying. "But, meeting with the dead, it's impossible," I said, muttering. Tatsumi-chan was staring at me intently. I was staring intently at Tatsumi-chan as well. Only my figure was reflecting in Tatsumi-chan's eyes. "You can, in this country. And I'm traveling for this reason. At any rate, just another time, I want to meet my mother, even one glance is okay." She said these things as if her voice was squeezing out of her throat. However, what was Tatsumi-chan going to say in the first place? Something like meeting the dead was possible. Before I was born, there was a war. A huge war that involved the world. The Fourth Ninja World War. Do you know about it? I nodded slightly, silent. It seems like that during this war, a lot of people who had died had come back again to this world, and fought. Since it happened that the dead appeared, it doesn't mean that's absolutely impossible. That was something even I had heard about. If I remember correctly, it was a forbidden jutsu that summoned the dead in this world using a sacrifice. It was a foul jutsu that toyed with the souls of the dead that were sleeping peacefully. They say that during the Fourth Ninja World War the enemy had manipulated and resurrected some people who had become famous for their long military service and heroes of the past with this jutsu. What was its name, anyhow? There was a logic even in the things she was saying. This kind of jutsu existed once. It had also happened that the dead had showed themselves in this world. In this case, also the story of the hot spring where you can meet the dead. You don't have anyone, Mirai-san? A person you want to meet at any cost. Tatsumi-chan drew closer, and I backed off. But since I was still immersed into the hot spring, I was immediately at a loss of where to go. As if to escape from Tatsumi-chan's clear eyes, I turned my eyes away. Maybe I was feeling dizzy. My body was hot. I was out of it, somewhat. My thoughts were well in order. A person I wanted to meet. Meeting with a dead person. If something like that really existed, then if I could meet my deceased father. I said before I knew it. The inside of my mouth was dry. My throat hurt as if something was stuck into it. I'm glad. To tell the truth, I was uneasy about going alone. Maybe out of relief, Tatsumi-chan smiled gently. "Let's go together." because you have a chance only during the night. After this, Tatsumi-chan intended on leading towards the hot spring in which you can meet the dead. Apparently, also the place wasn't far away. And you had a chance only during the night. For me, only now, while I stared at Tatsumi-chan's back, who had stood up excitedly and had gone towards the dressing room, I moistened my aching throat with saliva. Had I ever hesitated? This kind of thought sprouted. Both the Six and Gai-san were sleeping already. As usual, I had also inspected their room beforehand. There weren't tags for ghosts affixed. Among the employees and the other guests of the inn, there wasn't anybody suspicious. New hot water was incessantly flowing from the spring. The stars were still sparkling, and the quiet night wasn't about to be over yet. If I returned before morning, even I, just once, the fact that I was trembling like that was nothing more than an outward appearance. Because the sense inside me had already found a solution. All that was left was just stepping forward. I, who had changed my clothes to my usual traveling attire and sneaked out of the inn with Tatsumi-chan, was walking down the post town in the dead of the night. As expected, there weren't other people beside us, and also the shops were closed. I surveyed our surroundings while feeling the pleasantly cool air of the night with my skin after taking the bath. The daytime side of the town jammed with people seemed fake. On the contrary, it seemed that loneliness was just as much conspicuous as liveliness. Eventually, a different scenery from daytime was bound to appear. Faded banners. Rusty signboards. Damaged stalls. Under the light of the day, there were things that you didn't care about in particular in the flourishing downtown. When I looked at them, I had the feeling that everybody had fallen asleep and we had been left alone in a deserted world where not a single person was awake. Let's drop in a place to drink spring water. In the place in the outskirts of the town we had turned up, Tatsumi-chan, who was walking in front of me, turned around. Apparently, she had decided to take the mountain road in front of her. She was thirsty, so she wanted to drink hot spring water together. "Please, use this bottle," she said, and handed me a brand new bottle. It was a bottle to be used exclusively in a spot to drink hot spring water. In the land of hot water, there was the hygienic use of drinking little by little while walking through the hot springs that employed this bottle. I often had noticed people who were strolling in the public parks of the neighborhood with their bottle hanging from their neck. We imitated them as well, and we drew the hot spring water and carried it with us. In the deserted spot to drink hot spring water, fresh spring water was provided as usual, just like in the morning. When we finished drawing the water until it was full, we immediately tried to drink it using the straw included in the lid. I wondered if there was an iron component in it. I don't know how to describe it. The flavor was neither pleasant nor unpleasant, but it's something you can drink if it's for your health. By the way, there was a straw included in this bottle, but it was purposely made so that you could drink only a small quantity. The stomach gets upset if you drink hot spring water with strong components all at once, so it's made so that you drink it holding it in your mouth slowly. While we sipped the hot spring water little by little, we began proceeding in the dark mountain road. Although there was the light of the stars, the mountain at night was dark all the same. However, Tatsumi-chan was walking without hesitation. Tatsumi-chan's long hair, which she had tied up in the hot spring, was swaying slowly in front of my eyes. It was swaying as if I was inviting it to come there. A little bit further. Suddenly, Tatsumi-chan was out of breath. It was because out of the road to ascend to the mountain, the ground under our feet has become bad all of a sudden. I followed after her while hearing the faint ha-ha sound of her breathing. I wondered if she had come to inspect the place once. In the darkness, she hadn't lost her way at all. Then, I wondered how much time had passed. When the hot spring water of the bottle had become half, Tatsumi-chan stopped her feet. In the slope in front of our eyes, a noticeably deep darkness had appeared. It was a cave. Here. Tatsumi-chan wiped her sweat while catching her breath. I wondered if there was really a hot spring where you could meet the dead in a place like that. Surely it seemed a place that people didn't approach, but I set foot in the cave together with Tatsumi-chan. The humid air, still different from the air of the night, while pleasantly cool, was sticking on my skin. Surely, proceeding like this in the darkness, where the light of the stars doesn't reach us, is dangerous. When I thought this, Tatsumi-chan lit a candle. The faint light began illuminating the inside of the cave slightly. It's better than nothing. While laughing with a hee, Tatsumi-chan fetched a portable candlestick, a candle holder with a handle. Led by the small light of the candle in front of us, we proceeded walking further and further inside. If there really was a hot spring where you could meet the dead ahead, the light of a candle would look just like a soul that was going towards the other world. Maybe people, when they die, go to the other world passing through a place like this. I was suddenly thinking things like these. We proceeded like that for a while, when a faint light appeared at the end of the path. Was it the hot spring of our intention? We kept walking inside the dark cave, and when finally the light could be seen in front of our eyes, it seemed as if we had really gone to the other world. The more we proceeded, the more the light got near. And then, we arrived to an open space. And, that moment, I, who had stopped walking, halted Tatsumi-chan with my arm, who was next to me. Wait. There's someone here. Promptly hiding ourselves in the shadow of a rock nearby, I examined the situation. In that place, which was just like a huge cave, a lot of candles had been lined one next to the other, and a lot of people were gathered. Probably, they were at least 20 people. It wasn't normal that so many people had gathered inside a cavern despite we were in the dead of the night. However, the thing that really surprised me weren't the people, but their appearance. All the people who were in that place were wearing clothes that looked like ropes, which concealed them completely from head to feet, and had a cloth hanging in front of their faces. With that, I couldn't tell neither the EIR figure nor their gender, let alone their expressions. Why did all of them conceal their faces? I had an extremely unpleasant feeling. On the cloth that concealed their face, there was drawn an unfamiliar pattern, a triangle inside a circle. Doesn't it seem that everyone is taking part to a ceremony? I muttered, lowering my voice. There was only one person in the group who was wearing clothes of a different color, and it seemed like some gathering where this character was going to play a central role, but, illuminated by the many candles, the shadows that stretched from the mysterious group were slowly flickering on the walls of the cavern. It was a wide space, but thanks to those candles its inner appearance was well visible. Apparently, the hot spring where you could meet with the dead wasn't there. I have to retrace my steps, the instinct inside me told me. However, suddenly, Tatsumi-chan went out of the shadow of the rock. Tatsumi-chan. It's okay. Tatsumi-chan said, and lined the candle of her portable candlestick with the other candles. They're all friends. Tatsumi-chan turned around and grinned. Thereupon, the main character that was wearing the clothes of a different color noticed us. Tatsumi-san, you came just to the right place. A gentle voice. It was a man. His face wasn't visible because of the cloth with the triangle and circle drawn on it, but from the tone of his voice and his way of talking he seemed a young man. Ryoki-sama. Tatsumi-chan rushed over the man, Ryoki. As I promised, I've brought a new friend along. I'm glad. I think it's time to begin the ceremony. The two were talking as if they were close friends. As I didn't understand what was going on, I was surrounded by the mysterious group. I gave a quick glance at the appearance of their backs. People were in my way, and they could come forth at a moment's notice. Tatsumi-chan, what the heck? When I asked her this, Tatsumi-chan answered with an excited look. When he says a prayer to a hot spring, Ryoki-sama can fulfill any miracle. He can even turn an ordinary hot spring anywhere into a hot spring that can heal any kind of disease, or into a hot spring that can communicate with the dead. Even I will be able to meet my mother after this, she said, her eyes sparkling. Using the power of this miracle, I'll lead the world to a better course. That's my dream. Saying so, Ryoki opened both his arms wide. I couldn't see his expression because of the cloth, but he was probably smiling. Then, Ryuki continued in a calm voice. However, I have a lot of comrades for this purpose. Because I have to act passing through the country. For this reason, I decided to make Tatsumi-san introduce one of her friends to me. That meant me. Tatsumi-chan would meet her deceased mother thanks to the power of this miracle, so she was told to bring also a friend along with her when she came to the meeting. That, or something like that. When I frowned, Ryuki fetched the bottle for drinking hot spring water from a place that looked like a simple altar. Also around the altar there was drawn the same figure of the triangle inside a circle of his cloth on his face. From today, you are one of our friends, too. Well, first of all, let's carry out the ritual of enrollment. Drink up the water of this miraculous hot spring I offered a prayer to, please. So that you'll take benefit of it, he handed me the bottle with an extremely exaggerated gesture. Ah, thanks. With a half-hearted response, I brought the bottle I had taken to my lips. I didn't drink it. A moment later, I removed the lid of the bottle and threw the content away. What? Everybody around me stirred. However, I threw away also the bottle, unmindful. Mirai-san. Tatsumi-chan called me, surprised. I, who was staring at the wet ground and then shifted my gaze to Ryuki, said with a smile, I'm sorry. By the way, that thing you called miraculous, was it a sleeping draft? In a second, everyone around me fell silent. A small escaped from Tatsumi-chan's mouth. I felt as if I could hear Ryuki clicking his tongue. Ryuki, who had stepped back without a word, made a movement pointing at me with his chin, and those guys around me swooped down on me at once. My arms were pinned behind my back and pressed down at left and right. Ryuki-sama, what does it mean? Please, release Mirai-san. With a sidelong glance to a bewildered Tatsumi-chan, Ryuki muttered, as if was spitting it out, when I thought that I had gathered enough sacrifices, at the last moment you've brought along a particularly quick-witted girl. His gentle voice of some time ago changed completely, and turned into the tone of voice one has when he thinks he's alone. However, you can't get away anymore. I'll begin the ceremony immediately. His voice had the air of a composed and good young man, but just like now he looked like a beast. However, no matter how much a feral beast howls, it's insignificant for me. The people who were holding me down revolved in midair. Hey! Ryuki's hysteric voice resounded through the cave. Why were they suddenly revolving in midair? Why, of course, because I had thrown them. When I untied the restraints, I had thrown them with a blow, but they were completely ordinary people. It didn't look like that they had received some kind of training. But while I looked down on them, who were rolling on the ground and moaning in pain, I had no sympathy for them. Because there was a thing I wanted to ask. Earlier, you said I've gathered enough sacrifices, right? Let me hear this story in detail. I, who had got rid of my traveling clothes and was now in my mission attire, warned the people around me with a glare. All of you, don't move. You're the criminals of the kidnappings that have been happening near the country border, right? This vest. Ryuki yelled, backing off. Shiite. You're a ninja of Konoha, aren't you? Clash, Ryuki bumped against the altar behind him and distanced himself from me, flustered. Shit. You fool. Why did you take this girl with you? Ryuki was blatantly flustered. Voices of commotions rose also from the group that was surrounding me. I'm sorry I didn't tell you, Tatsumi-chan. I'm a ninja. I smiled towards Tatsumi-chan, who was opening her eyes wide while covering her mouth with her hands. Well then. I, who had overawed the people around me again with a narrow glance, asked Ryuki, are the people you abducted okay? What are you planning? Thereupon, Ryuki began laughing quietly, as if he had regained his composure a little. What, you say? I already told you before. I'll rule the world and, for this reason, the sacrifices. That's right. I need them to gain an immense power of influence against the world, without being tied by anyone, without hindrances in my way. That's the ceremony and immortality of the body. Now, I'll become a being similar to a divinity that transcends even the truth of human life, and rule this world. His voice carried well. That man was saying nonsense, making who knows what kind of face. It seemed a pity that he had his face hidden by the cloth. Even so, a moment later an applause broke out in the cave, which had fallen silent as death. It was due to Ryuki's comrades that were around me. At that, I winced, as one would expect. Meanwhile, Tatsumi-chan, who had probably received a bigger shock than me, raised her voice calmly, even if she was standing stock still in a daze. A thing like that. In this case, the fact that you'll help people who suffer from illness with your miraculous power. Of course, they were a bunch of lies. I need money to manage the organization. It's inevitable. Surely, also the people who suffer from illness will understand. Besides, Ryuki continued, smiling with a tinge of self-derision. Even people with a weak heart are profitable. Guys like those have an extremely narrow field of vision. That's why I dangle fake hopes in front of their eyes. It's funny how they look when they frantically bite into them. Well, clinging on to an easy hope and being deceived is worse. Without looking sorry, Ryuki, who had finally revealed his criminal technique, announced out loud, "I'm full of money already. All's left is only an immortal body. With that, I'll be able to become a perfect being." With Ryuki standing in front of her like that, Tatsumi-chan was weeping. Then, also when you said that you'd make me meet my mother was a lie. While shedding tears in large drops, Tatsumi-chan drew closer to Ryuki. Why did you tell such a lie? However, the ones that came out of Ryuki's mouth were unexpected words. Your mother? Oh, that was true. Eh? Tatsumi-chan looked up to Ryuki while sniffing and wiping her tears. Ryuki's voice had turned back again to the calm of the beginning. The way he had changed so much was even eerie, but in his words, which were like a surprise attack, bewilderment came before eeriness. There's one thing I haven't told you, Tatsumi-chan. They're words that we've been treasuring a lot for quite some time, things that one might call our doctrine. While saying so, Ryuki raised his hand slowly. Also, Tatsumi-chan unintentionally looked up towards the hand that was raised in front of her eyes. The thing that was visible from his cuffs was, "Thou shalt slaughter thy neighbor." It was a blade. A small scythe was clutched in Ryuki's hand. This is the teaching of us, the Jashinists. As I promised, I'll make you join your mother in the other world. Tatsumi-chan. Kicking the ground, I forced my way between the two. While holding Tatsumi-chan in my arms, the scythe that Ryuki had swung downward pierced my right shoulder very deeply. But I got away from Ryuki together with Tatsumi-chan without minding it. Coo! My blood splattered around. From the point of the scythe that Ryuki was holding, scarlet blood was trickling down in drops. Tatsumi-chan gulped. Mirai-san, It's all right. It's all right, so stay close to me. I told her shortly, and immediately turned around to face Ryuki. Something like a wound on my right shoulder was trivial. There was something much more important than that. What did you say just now? I glared at Ryuki, my breathing erratic. Jashinist, you said. That was the name that appeared on a certain top-secret document that I shouldn't have read. It was a document I had a stealthy look at in the deserted archive of the Hokage's room. This is a name I'll never forget. Of course, if I had been discovered, I wouldn't have got away with that. If they had found me, I'd have been arrested, and there was even the possibility that I'd have been killed if I had screwed up. However, I had reasons to read this document at any cost. Akatsuki, this was the title of the document of my intention. I looked for the countless files one after the other. I skimmed through the minutely written documents. Then, I found a certain account and stopped my hand. Sarutobi Asuma killed in action for a little while. I stared at those characters. Oddly, my head was clearer than usual. While being wary of my surroundings, I read the information on the front and the back with diligence and a hurry. Jashinist, that was the word that appeared in the document concerning my father. It was the same of a radical religious organization that worshipped a divinity called Jashin Sama and considered murder righteous. However, all I could understand was that this reality was enshrouded by a lot of mysteries, and it seemed that this new religion was born in the land of hot water. In the document, there was also the account of an extra inquiry, but it ended without having been able to find even one member of this religious movement, not to mention its location. So, at the very end of the document, there was written its possibility the fruit of a conjecture by the one in charge of the inquiry. The one and only thing I understood was that the man who had killed my father was a zealous member of this religion. I was there to know that man in detail. Restraining my impetuous feelings, I turned the pages of the document. The man's name was, that moment, I felt the presence of a person, and closed the document in a hurry. Someone was getting near the room. Shit, I wanted to see a little bit more, but it was no use. Being caught here would have meant causing troubles for the seventh, and make my mother sad. Putting all the documents as they were before, I quietly slipped out of the room. If I think about it, that was the first day in my life that I had dared to do something like breaking the rules. The cave was wrapped by silence for a short while. I took another long look at the man in front of me. The man in front of me, Ryoki, had surely claimed to be a Jashinist. In that case, I could understand also the story of the ceremony with which he obtained an immortal body using sacrifices. It wasn't nonsense talk, but it had suddenly turned into a true oath. Because also the aforementioned man, who had once belonged to Akatsuki, was said to have an immortal body. Are you, for real? Did you really say you are a follower of Jashinism? When I asked him this, Ryoki muttered as he prepared to use his scythe. Judging from your way of talking, you know about us, right? Is really Konoha at this point. In this case, you know about that man, right? With a look as if he had understood something, Ryoki raised his voice. You guys of Konoha, not only that detestable Konoha but also this country, you didn't understand a thing about that man. The world calls that man the demon of murder who was born in the village hidden in the hot springs, but I want to say out loud that it's a big mistake. That man, he was talking about the man who appeared in the documents of the Akatsuki. Oh yes, before talking about that man, let's talk about the village of Yugakure in this country. Do you know how the world calls the village hidden in the hot springs? When I kept quiet at that question, whose meaning I couldn't understand well, Ryoki answered quietly. The village hidden in the warm springs. At those words, I recalled something. The low level of proficiency of the ninja from the village hidden in the hot springs. Just some days before, I had surely recalled words like those. This country, and this village, yell peace, peace as if it was the only foolish thing they know. As a result, they promoted disarmament and the land of hot water became Pacific, or so it seems. However, such thing is just pretense. If something happened, they'd run about trying to escape, examine the other country's expressions, rely on to the other villages, and they wouldn't be able to do anything by themselves. Under the name of pacifism, we're still an eternally weak and small country. In a village that is totally immersed in tepid water like this, that man suffered alone in a valley of irritation and sense of impending crisis. With a tone of voice filled with rage, Ryoki continued. The thing that helped that man, who was in such a pain, was Jashin Sama and the religion of Jashinism. That man, who was freed from that curse called peace and acquired an immortal body, kept fighting for this country all alone. To bestow the same irritation and sense of impending crisis as his own onto each person. Doing so, he tried to rule this country, and the world. Only Ryoki's voice was resounding in the cave. Despite there were many people besides him all around, I couldn't even hear their breathing. They looked just like corpses standing up. As opposed to Ryoki's hot speech, a pleasantly cool air was hanging around me. That man wasn't a mere demon of murder. Fighting, killing. That was the ideal figure of all the existence of this world, and that great man embodied it. But also that man's efforts were fruitless, and nowadays the curse of peace is spreading in the world. Everybody actively decided to soak into tepid water. Why that? Because nobody understood the real figure of that man. However, only I know him. There's nobody who understands that man as I do. That's why I inherited that man's will. I'll obtain an overwhelming power to which everyone will prostrate, and I'll rule the world. And for this reason you need an immortal body. Exactly. I'll obtain the same body as that man and spread Jashin Sama's teachings to the world. There's no way that a shady guy like you will be able to rule the world. I said, interrupting Ryuki's speech, and the followers around me, who had been silent until then, began stirring. Wah! Ryuki was at a loss of words. I stared right at him. Those fellows who talk about peace irresponsibly gave birth to a person like you. I'm sorry about that. However, you're too dangerous. Only those who have the same ways of thinking as you do will acknowledge you. You associate only with people like that. Extremely strict with other people, thoroughly indulgent towards yourself and your fellows. For your own goals you affirm even murder and violence by any means. Do you really think that there will be people who would want to live in the world and the country that a person like that idealized? At first glance, the land of hot water was peaceful and with a good public order, but the darkness of this country was deeper than I thought. I had no problem whatsoever against them myself, and the situation wasn't going to change and settle down immediately. However, I just couldn't overlook the evil intention that was clear in front of my eyes. From now on, you'll surely make a lot of people unhappy. I firmly tied my Konoha forehead protector, and I won't let you make your debut in the world. Before you do so, I'm going to crush you here and now. I declared. Cuckoo, ah. Do you really think, you said? This is my line. Ryuki let out a simmering laugh. Look at your situation. You're outnumbered. Even if you say you're a ninja, do you really think that you'll be able to walk around all alone with us all as your opponent while you're protecting that burden? As if they were acting in response to Ryuki's voice, all the members of the religious organization around me took their small scythe in their hands at once. With a slow movement, the members of the religious organization surrounded Tatsumi-chan and me. Mirai-san. While protecting a panicked Tatsumi-chan with my back, I put my chakra blades on both my hands. If those guys use weapons, I can't go easy on them, too. I firmly clutched the chakra blades, which were shining dimly, and prepared myself. Still, it doesn't change the fact that you are sacrifices. However, I'm done with capturing you alive already. I'll kill you too. As Ryuki howled, the members of the religious organization raised their scythes over their heads and swooped down on us. I stuck out my fist towards the point of the scythe that was being swung downward in front of my eyes. When I was clutching my chakra blades like that, I always remembered my sensei's words. Listen, Mirai. My sensei told me, who was preparing to use the chakra blades. Imagine the nature transformation of wind like dividing the chakra in two and rub those parts together. Just as if you were sharpening the two chakra thinly and sharply. Well, that's all a second-hand knowledge though, my sensei said, and smiled. At my feet, there was a shadow that was stretching from my sensei's feet. It was my sensei's strong point, the Kage-main no Jutsu. I'm teaching you all the things, Asuma's techniques, I've seen until now. Even so, I have no talent at taijutsu. You have no choice but learning taijutsu like this. Are you ready? Of course I am, I answered, and my body began moving of its own accord, with the same movement as my sensei. I was taught the same movement repeatedly many and many times over. Slowly, it made the techniques penetrate into my body one by one. They were all the things that my sensei once witnessed. The way my father fought. Well then, pour your chakra into them. How about getting into an actual fight soon? Flying swallow. The moment my chakra blade came in contact with the point of the scythe, the point of the scythe was cut just as if I had cut some tofu. That was the jutsu flying swallow, which turned chakra at a high grade of condensation into a blade. This technique, which my father liked and used, not only enhanced the power of killing and wounding of the weapon, but it could also change the range of the attack acting according to the chakra control. It could create to an extensible blade of light by combining the amount of chakra with the chakra blade, which becomes easy to manipulate. I flew about, skillfully changing the length of the blade, and the next moment the scythes that the members of the religious group were wielding turned into mere sticks. The severed parts of the blades fell onto the ground while making a snapping sound. At the same time, also the members of the religious organization crumbled down one after the other. No way. Ryuki, who was in front of the altar, muttered, dumbfounded. Although I said I was surrounded, the ones who were directly facing me were 9 or 10 people at best. Even if they were using weapons, they were amateurs. It didn't mean that they were going to use techniques, or that they were going to attack me with a cooperation attack. I wouldn't be defeated by an enemy of this level. Ryuki. I turned towards Ryuki again. You were saying this and that about me being all alone. Don't underestimate a ninja. When I pointed my chakra blade clad in the flying swallow towards him, Ryuki raised a small shriek behind his face cloth. Around me, there were the members of the religious organization who had fallen down and were moaning. The other members left just watched me surrounding me at a distance as if they had lost their fighting spirit, without moving. It's over. I'm arresting you. I slowly moved towards Ryuki. Thereupon, Ryuki's legs gave way in fear. Don't come. Shit. In a place like this my immortal body thanks to the ceremony, the sacrifices for that, Ryuki backed off while shrieking, but all of a sudden he yelled to the members of the religious organization that were in the room. Bring the sacrifices immediately. I'll kill them all. I don't care about it anymore. It'll be a massacre. Those were probably words he was saying on the spur of the moment, in confusion. It was a completely illogical speech. However, it was that man's true nature, and the only effect of those words was at least that I stopped my feet. Damn it. When they saw that I was taken aback, the members of the religious organization rushed towards a passage that was inside the cave. At the other side of that, the girls that had been kidnapped as sacrifices were held prisoners. Seeing my reaction, Ryuki began laughing immediately. That's right, don't move. They're hostages. If you move, I'll kill the hostages. That's fine. This is Jashin-sama's guidance. The fruit of our habitual creed. Ryuki stood up unsteadily, wheezing. If you want to save the hostages, become a sacrifice quietly. You're a completely cliché villain. Even if I come quietly, you'll kill everyone anyway, right? It's pretty obvious, isn't it? However, I'll kill the hostages if you move. What did I have to do? My heart became an alarm bell. Don't be impatient. If you arrest Ryuki, the members of the religious organization are capable of killing the hostages on a rampage. However, even if I don't move, Ryuki will perform the ceremony anyway. Even if I pretended to be calm, I was at a loss of good ideas. At a time like that, what would I do if I were my sensei? If there had been my father, Konohamaru, or the 7th, the 6th in Gaisan, my thoughts weren't in order. So bad, then, that moment, Gwa. I heard a voice coming from inside the cave. Wah. A voice, again. Together with the voice, I could hear the sound of people collapsing. Ryuki-sama. What's the matter? One of the members of the religious organization ran back to him in a hurry. All of a sudden, a recklessly strong man, an electric sound that hurt my ears. The member of the religious organization collapsed on the spot, fibrillating. The one standing behind him was Kakashi-san. It was the sixth, with the point of his fingers clad in a bluish-white electric current. Ah, the recklessly strong man is not me. The sixth pointed towards inside the cave with his usual aloof-from-the-world attitude. From there, I could hear the shrieks of the members of the religious organization and Gai-san's hot roars. Whenever Gai-san's vigorous, enthusiastic shouts resounded, the shrieks of the members of the religious organization echoed. What are these moves? Help eek. What's going on? What's going on? Why? Impossible. This kind of strange beast, I've never seen in. Uamuum. Jaya. From inside the passage, I could hear voices that sounded just like agonizing cries. What movements on earth is Gai-san doing with his wheelchair? I listened to those mysterious voices, shuddering, and in the end there wasn't even one sound. Thereupon, Gai-san immediately appeared from inside the passage, in his wheelchair. Kakashi, the hostages are all safe. Gai-san smiled, sticking up his thumb. His nice guy pose was quite reassuring. Yeah, I'm relying on you to restrain the enemies one after the other. The sixth replied, sticking up his thumb like him. Lead it to me. Gai-san's well-carrying voice resounded inside the cave. Relieved by the fact that the hostage's safety was confirmed, I asked the sixth, Kakashi-san, what are you doing in a place like this? Why, I was worried because you had left the inn in the middle of the night. If you had only gone on a trip with a friend it wouldn't have mattered in particular, but still it was strange of you to go out of the town and penetrate into the mountain. He was surely worried if he had observed me penetrating into the mountain all of a sudden in the dead of the night. I wondered if he hadn't followed me with a Kagebunshin or a ninja dog he had summoned. I hadn't realized it. Ah, sorry. It looks like I'm getting more prone to worry as I grow older. The sixth said apologetically, but thanks to him I was able to escape from that desperate situation. I had to tell him about the tags in exchange. No, you saved me. I'm sorry I sneaked away on my own accord. Bang, the altar made a crashing sound. Ryoki, who had tried to escape, had bumped into it. Kakashi-san, I'm leaving this child to you. Leading Tatsumi-chan to the sixth, I prepared to use my chakra blades again. Ryoki, I'm arresting you. Hi, don't come here. I approached Ryoki, who shrieked clumsily trying to use the altar as a shield. Then, a moment later, Ryoki's shriek turned into a laugh. Ah, you fell for it. How nice, you came within my range. If people are told not to come, they'll surely want to come. Ryoki declared loudly, raising his arms as if he was looking up towards the sky. From here, I'll begin the ritual. When I looked around me, at my feet, all around the altar, there was the aforementioned figure of a triangle drawn inside a circle. Ryoki and I were standing together inside the figure. The shrieks, and his clumsy figure, they were a trap to make me approach. When I realized it, Ryoki had already moved. Idiot! You let your guard down. You carelessly got near me and now you'll lose. While yelling so, Ryoki picked up a human shape that was decorating the altar. It was a rough but somehow eerie human shape made out of a jute bag. The human shape was hanging its head from the threads that were stretching from the tip of Ryoki's fingers. In a moment, I put myself on guard as if it was a puppet, but the ones stretching from the tip of his fingers were ordinary, physical threads. Ryoki, who wasn't a ninja, couldn't use puppet techniques to begin with. Ryoki, who was holding the human shape in one hand and the small scythe on the other hand, assumed a relaxed posture. For your fault, anything and everything is a mess. Because of you, before I obtained an immortal body, I ended up with doing another ritual. It's all ruined, despite I had prepared it with great trouble. While he said so, Ryoki licked the edge of his scythe. There, a bright red liquid, my blood of when he had swung it down on my shoulder, was sticking to it. Please, lend me your power, Jashin-sama. I'll bestow your divine punishment to these guys. What the heck? I opened my eyes wide. The threads hanging from the tip of Ryoki's fingers slowly dyed in a dark red. It looked just as if the blood was soaking into them, going from the tip of his fingers to the human shape. Then, when the threads became completely dark red, the human shape of jute bag raised its head. On the head, an unpleasant pattern similar to a skull appeared. What's this jutsu? It was a technique I had never seen. Any jutsu has its own lineage, but the strange thing was that I couldn't even understand which current was it coming from. Mirai, go away, the sixth yelled. It was the first time I hear the sixth with such a frantic voice. It's too late. You're already cursed. Ryoki yelled, as if to erase the sixth's voice. Curse technique, body maneuvering blood dot. Suddenly, I couldn't move as if my feet were stuck to the ground. This is not a ninjutsu, a curse jutsu, you said. This is Jashin-sama's power that casts a curse using the opponent's blood. Now you and this human shape are completely tied together. And this jutsu doesn't dispel even if you die. In short, even if you become a corpse, you're my puppet forever. When Ryoki moved his fingertips, the human shape's legs gave way with a thump. Thereupon, also my body sank down on the spot of its own accord. Oh. No matter how much I struggled, I couldn't use my body as I wanted to. If I can, I don't want to use this technique, because I can't use it if I don't accumulate enough power. Because of you, the ceremony to gain an immortal body became far away. However, for the sake of my dream, you guys ended up here. I won't let anybody get in my way. Ryoki's breathing became gradually heavier. Woman, I'll kill you first. Then I'll kill those two manipulating you. And at last, I'll kill the man with the sweltering face that is inside. With that, my plans won't go amiss. I'll await the next chance, and aim to an immortal body again. There's no problem. While making a painful-looking breathing sound, Ryoki raised his scythe over his head. Then he swung it down in one go, aiming at the limp human shape. The scythe was thrust deeply onto the human shape's chest. That moment, my body had a convulsion with a sudden twitch. Cough. A large quantity of blood started overflowing from my mouth. I collapsed on the spot while shedding blood in drops. Phew, I did it, the other three left. I'm going to kill them. When Ryoki moved his fingertips, the human shape, which had collapsed on the spot, stood up. At the same time I, covered in blood, stood up, too. That was surely a curse jutsu that didn't dispel even if I died. Well then, kill those two. Ryoki sent the human shape towards the sixth and Tatsumi-chan. However, I didn't move. Why is that? Ryoki frantically moved the human figure. However, I didn't react at all. Or rather, it's not that I didn't react. Because I hadn't got caught in Ryoki's technique to begin with. For this reason, I obviously hadn't coughed blood from my mouth. In fact, there was no wound in my shoulder. Seeing me like that, the sixth grinned. Don't tell me that he had already been caught in your genjutsu. As such a fool. I smiled towards Ryoki, who was flustered. What did the hot spring water taste like? It wasn't blood. Ryoki slowly looked down towards the human shape. The human shape in Ryoki's hands was hanging its head loosely, just like when I had seen it the first time. There was no pattern of a skull on its head, nor deep red threads. It was a mere puppet. And the thick thing that was sticking on the scythe that Ryoki was holding wasn't blood, but mere hot spring water. It was the one I had drew in the spot to drink hot spring water with Tatsumi-chan while we were coming here. I knew very well that he activates his techniques using blood. I proudly told the sixth, who had praised me. The moment I heard Jashinism, I remembered the sentence of the document that says they use an unknown technique using blood as an intermediary. That's why I pretended to shed blood on purpose, just to be sure. Saying so, I fetched the bottle to drink hot spring water I had received from Tatsumi-chan. In the bottle there was the trace that the scythe had penetrated deeply, and all the water inside had flowed out. No way. I'm sure I pierced your shoulder. Ryoki muttered incoherently, staggering. Sure, Ryoki's scythe had been swung downward on my shoulder. However, that time, while I was trying to protect Tatsumi-chan and I had forced my way between the two, I had stopped the blow of the scythe with the bottle I was holding on one hand. The thing that had splattered around wasn't blood, but hot spring water. Also, the thing that had stuck to the scythe was hot spring water. Because of my instantaneous jinjutsu, I pretended that it was blood. And Ryoki saw the illusion of the scythe piercing my shoulder and blood scattering around. Naturally, Ryoki, who wasn't a ninja properly speaking, couldn't even pierce my Konoha vest, which had special fibers weaved into it, by attacking me with his scythe in that way, but even so, I had prepared traps and trump cards on purpose. That was also a thing that I learned from my sensei. In this case, the taste of that blood. Ryoki, who had talked until then, was taken aback. The hot spring water, don't tell me that it has an iron component. Ryoki moaned, looking disgusted. Since people's sense of taste is surprisingly vague, many times it depends on the sense of sight and smell. Seeing the image that I got injured, and the red fluid stuck on his scythe, in Ryoki's tongue, who was thoroughly convinced that it was blood, the iron component included in the hot spring water surely felt like the taste of true blood. Well then, what do I do next? When I took a step forward, Ryoki took a step backward. If you still have traps and trump cards, you better reveal them quickly. Another step forward. The threads of the human shape fell from Ryoki's hands. Even if I had just caught him, nothing had changed for that man. He just hadn't had enough painful experiences. From now on, he'd probably hate the world continuously and keep having bad aspirations. I didn't know whether I could rid of him completely or not, but I had to drive the fact that it was useless thoroughly into him, no matter what he did. But even then, there was bound to be some root of evil in the future. Hey, listen well. Step after step, I approached Ryoki. From now on, you'll surely bring sadness to someone again. However, each time you'll scheme something evil, I'll block the way in front of you. No matter how many tricks you'll play, I'll always be many steps ahead of you. Absolutely, I eternally won't let you do as you please. And finally, I was standing in front of Ryoki's eyes. Wow. This time, Ryoki shrieked for real. It was the voice of a person scared out of his wits. Wind was swirling with my fist, my chakra blade that I was clutching, as its center. Despite we were inside the cave, the atmosphere around me was noisy. In the end, this wind wrapped my whole arm. Wind-style techniques were something I was taught by my sensei's wife, Tamari-san. Tamari-san, who is the previous Kazekage's daughter as well as the current Kazekage's older sister, in short, a princess of the village hidden in the sand, is also a wind release user to the point that she was one of the best during the ninja war. Well then, there's wind release next, but there's no way for me with this only. So, at my sensei's suggestion, he arranged that Tamari-san would teach me wind release, but Tamari-san was an extremely hard teacher. There's no way that I'll explain a thing like that with words. Learn with your body. Tamari-san said bluntly, and waved the folding fan she was holding once. Thereupon, a sudden wind was created, and my body revolved in midair in the twinkle of an eye. However, I fell immediately. I miserably failed to land. I learned with my body. Surely there are a lot of things that you can't understand by just explaining them with words, such as the carriage of the body and the feeling of a technique, but even so the plans of training of this married couple are the same. From that day, whenever I trained I was agitated by Tamari-san's folding fan and ended up revolving in midair. When she was silent, Tamari-san made a beautiful yet a little bit frightening impression. However, after she blew me away she always showed me her extremely rare innocent smile. That was the smile that Shikata inherited. While I suffered that sudden wind from Tamari-san many times like that, I came to think why my sensei had married such a scary woman. Then, when I thought things like those, the feeling of the wind release penetrated into my whole body more than enough. While remembering the days of that deer training, I focused chakra on my arm. To be honest, I didn't want to go back a second time. Discarding idle thoughts, I only focused. This technique, which had the Kamaitachi no Jutsu that Temari-san uses at its basis, takes shapes with the image of the seventh and Konohama's Rasengan. The compression, keeping the chakra on the fist and making it revolve, is difficult, but I used a similar thing on my whole arm with the chakra blade I was grasping tightly as a cardinal point. I had clad my arm with a typhoon, so to speak. And this typhoon was a revolving blade of wind. It stroked, excavated, and pierced. My jutsu was both a striking attack and a slashing attack. And its name is Wind Release, Whirlwind Fist. I drove my fist into Ryoki's stomach. That moment, the wind that was cladding my arm pierced through Ryoki's body. Ryoki, who had been agitated and blown away by the sudden wind, collided with the wall of the cave and collapsed. Of course, I didn't kill him. He just couldn't move. Since I had seriously come to do the unthinkable thing of driving a blade of wind into Ryoki, who wasn't a ninja, that time I only left the shockwave without piercing him. Just like Temari-san did during my training in the past. I quickly restrained Ryoki, who had fallen down. Me, in a place like this. No. I, like that man. Ryoki moaned in pain. Even if he had been cornered to this point, his strong tenacity of purpose hadn't disappeared yet. That was something that you could even call a grudge already. However, Ryoki, you said? It's an ironic name. The sixth said quietly, looking down on the restrained Ryoki. Your name means dragon, but you can't even become a rook. Forever. Ryoki's heavy breathing was the only thing that resounded quietly inside the cave. Even if he clutched his fists trembling, looking tranquil, and quivered, Ryoki's fists were only grasping the empty space. Ryoki kept silent and said nothing more thereafter. That instant, I felt like I could hear the sound of Ryoki's mind breaking. We have no choice but leave the rest to Yugakure and the land of hot water, the sixth said, and promptly restrained the other members of the religious organization that had collapsed around us. I'll make my ninja dogs go towards the village hidden in the hot springs. They'll come immediately. I was taken aback by the excessive goodness of his planning. You already got in touch with them. Whatever the circumstances may be, wouldn't it be too soon? When I asked this, overly shocked, the sixth smiled as usual. The truth is that it's because this mission was also to investigate their movements, the sixth told me without hesitation while pointing towards Ryoki and the members of the religious organization. This mission, that is inspecting the undeveloped areas near the country border while being on a holiday. However, its real goal was to investigate the unidentified religious group that calls itself Jashinism at the same time. We had moved to clarify the truth of the religious group in a cooperation between the village hidden in the leaves and the village hidden in the hot springs. I made Kiba, Tenten, and Choji gather information in each place, pretending to be merely sightseeing for this reason. We met them all on the way, right? He said without hesitation, smiling. Sure, we had met both Kiba-san and Tenten-san and Choji-san. But that was necessary, not just accidental. Both making a stop over here and there in crowded sightseeing areas, and going out on that drinking bout, was all to gather information. In short, this mission was being on holiday and inspecting and gathering information, all at once. The more I thought about it, the more my head was about to explode. Why this to me? The opponent was a mysterious religious group whose actual condition couldn't be understood. We didn't know where its members were. We didn't even know where its headquarters were. That's why we needed to gather information pretending to be ordinary people. You could have told me, couldn't you? No, because your mission was guarding us to the very end and not gathering information. Besides, somebody had to examine the undeveloped areas and make maps. Now that he mentioned it, it was surely as he was saying. Kiba-san and Tenen-san and Choji-san had been gathering information under the sixth's guidance. No, but even so. When I insisted onto it once more, the sixth smiled weakly. Surely I was troubled as well. However, if I had told you, you could have behaved showing your wariness even more, making carnivorous eyes and searching for the members, unconsciously, I wouldn't have done such a thing. But I didn't say that. Because even I thought that I have done that. Anyway, it's not that I would have gathered information, even if I had been asked to. Of course, I could even say that I was glad that I had been able to focus onto another mission without knowing it. Maybe it was because I didn't know this story that I had been able to penetrate into the religious group's hideout like that. I had obtained a thing I didn't hope for without difficulty, and I didn't easily get the thing I hoped. People who naturally have something that somebody else hopes from the bottom of their heart can't realize its true value. Also, Ryuki had surely lived his life like that. I suddenly thought about a thing like that. Well, you were the right person in the right place in this mission. At any rate, despite your achievements, it's went well. The sixth laughed. When Ryuki and the others were taken by the Yugakure ninja who had come along, it was morning. Also, the kidnapped girls had been rescued, and the matter was settled. In the end, things like the actual conditions and the members of the religious group would probably be clarified with a further investigation. Kuu, the morning sun stings my eyes. It's the springtime of youth. Dai-san raised his healthy voice when we went out of the cave. He had been taken for an enemy by the ninja of Yugakure that had come along, and he had been arrested, but that was also typical of the springtime of youth. Imitating Dai-san, who was breathing deeply, I thoroughly enjoyed the fresh air of the morning as well. Maybe because the air inside the cave was stagnant, it felt good. I hadn't been able to sleep a wink, but now my eyes were wide awake. Then I called out to Tatsumi-chan, who had been continuously hanging her head in shame until then. Tatsumi-chan, what's the matter? I've unintentionally deceived you, Mirai-san. How can I apologize? The voice that came back from Tatsumi-chan seemed to vanish. Tatsumi-chan was regretting the fact that she had told me about the hot spring in which you could meet the dead and brought me along in the cave. However, here I said, and I fetched and showed Tatsumi-chan the bottle to drink hot spring water that I had received from her. In the bottle, there was clearly the cut made when I protected her from Ryuki's scythe. After you gave it to me. I'm sorry. I should apologize. I said, and smiled. Maybe, if I hadn't had the hot spring water, I wouldn't have been able to use Ryuki's trap against him. For me, that bottle had been like a lifesaver. Besides, you've been deceived too, Tatsumi-chan. Don't worry. But, I conveyed a certain feeling to Tatsumi-chan, who had raised her face while showing tears. I've been worried, recently. What's a ninja? What did I become a ninja for? Why I had been training hard and painfully until now, and various things, I didn't understand it. While saying so, I unintentionally made a bitter smile. However, I suddenly thought this while I was fighting while shielding you with my back, Tatsumi-chan. I've surely been training for a time like this. I've become a ninja for this. I looked right at Tatsumi-chan. I was glad I could fight. I was glad I had power. I was glad I was able to protect a friend. That time, I thought these things from the bottom of my heart. A friend. When you enter in a hot spring together with someone and look up towards the starry sky together, that's also friendship. The two of us casually thought about the same things, and we had met at the same time, in the same place. And we talked together, entering in a hot spring both in our birthday suit. We shared our feelings while staring at the starry sky. If that wasn't a friend, what in the world could you call a friend? I think that hot springs are places where everyone becomes happy. We, who had met in a place like that, are both fellow people who can share the same happiness. That's friendship. I said, and Tatsumi-chan nodded while wiping her tears. Why did I aim to be a ninja? Why did I become a ninja? It was too obvious, sometimes it just wasn't clear, but I knew it deep down. I had unconsciously realized it inside me. I had always known the answer. I wanted to protect somebody's future. And protecting somebody's future meant protecting somebody's present. Somebody's present is the future that my father wanted to protect. I'm living in this kind of world, in this kind of epoch. The feeling that my father entrusted my sensei with, just like my sensei entrusted me with it, I too will entrust the future, the next generation, with this feeling. That's why I became a ninja. I am a leaf swirling in the wind. I'll transmit the blueness of the sky to the young leaves that will bud next. I'll transmit the wideness of the world. This is my goal. I think I'll stop looking behind me. A smile returned on Tatsumi-chan's wet cheeks. When I return to my home village and hold a proper memorial service for my mother, I'll look straight forward. The light that was filtering through the spaces between the trees gently illuminated Tatsumi-chan. I thought that also the future that was waiting in front of where she was heading towards would surely become tender and bright like that sunlight filtering through the trees. Well then, shall we go back to the inn with everyone? We began descending the mountain with a calm feeling. Also, the once dark mountain path was completely illuminated, and the road that we had to follow was visible. It was a relatively troublesome mountain path when you had to ascend, but it wasn't a particularly big deal when you looked at it in the light. That's right. By the way, Mirai, the sixth said as if he had remembered something. Yes? I, who was descending the mountain path in the refreshing air, turned around, smiling. You were talking about the document of Jashinism and this and that, but browsing through that is forbidden. My heart almost jumped out. In an instant, my face lost all its color. Come to think of it, I had the hunch that I had talked proudly about having read that document while I was fighting. I had trouble with breathing. I couldn't breathe fair and square. The cold sweat was terrible. My body was trembling. Somehow, it seemed that also the mountain path in front of my eyes was awfully inaccessible. These symptoms were surely a curse technique of some sort. That, cough, that, When I became flustered, the sixth suddenly adopted an exaggerated tone. Come to think of it, I had authorized its browsing a lot of time ago. Just in case something happens, it's something along these lines, okay? The sixth said in a small voice, and smiled. I had the feeling that I had caught a glimpse of the previous Hokage's tolerance. New, as one would expect, descending a mountain with a wheelchair is intense. But I won't give in. There, I heard Gai-san's voice saying things like that. If it's so, from that cliff over there, in one go. I ran over Gai-san in a hurry, who had begun talking about absurd and dangerous things. I'll help you. Oh, sorry. I descended the mountain while pushing Gai-san's wheelchair. We were all dripping with sweat from the morning. Gai-san raised his cheerful voice while pointing towards the post town as if he was taking command of a corps in a battle. Right, when we return, a morning bath with everyone. A mixed bath? At my sudden reply, the sixth sighed. There's no way we'll do something like that. Hearing that, Tatsumi-chan began giggling. Seeing Tatsumi-chan's smiling face like that, I smiled brightly as well. When we returned to the inn, I'd immediately go in the hot spring again together with Tatsumi-chan. Under the sun that was shining bright, surely this time the conversation would get much more lively than before. Because between us there were no more lies and secrets. Epilogue. In a certain corner of the inn, Itachi Kakashi was standing alone in front of the telephone receiver. The scheduled contacts with the village were a duty of Sarutobi Mirai's, who was traveling with him as his guard, but that day the circumstances were different from usual. While he informed him that the mission had concluded safely, Kakashi had a certain reason for which he had to make the phone call by himself. Yeah, we're in the land of fire already. Soon we'll be back home. Kakashi told him his actual position and casually checked if there were people around him. Then, how did the other matter go? He asked under his breath. The one at the other side of the telephone was the 7th Hokage, Uzumaki Naruto. That's right. Sasuke and Sakura. That went well. Also, Sarada was delighted. The thing they were talking about was the object of the urgent phone call he had received at the inn some time before. So, those kids, yeah, Kabuto. Yeah, it's okay. He'll appreciate that. Kakashi's tone of voice had become a little softer. How nice that both matters have ended well. Yeah, that's right. Mirai did well. Kakashi smiled while listening carefully to Naruto's voice, which he could hear coming from the other side of the telephone. That's right. Lately she's been feeling like that. I know very well that you were worried. Then, he returned to his serious tone again. Vague hatred towards the terrorists. Sense of justice too strong. Strongly diligent and not flexible personality. Surely all of this was risky. I know that you were worried and sent her to me. Anyhow, that's because you've been looking a lot at this kind of thing since she was a child. While saying so, Kakashi smiled spontaneously. However, it was an absurd fear. She's all right. You two knew it deep down, right? Hearing Naruto's answer, Kakashi made a bitter smile again. You're more prone to worrying than before. Well, I am, too. Ah, he laughed, raising his voice instinctively. It's mutual, you became the family of everyone in the village. I know this feeling. Of course, being a little prone to worrying turns out well. When it's important, if you can decide accurately because of that. And, that moment, Kakashi noticed a man on a wheelchair coming along from the other side of the corridor. He was his best friend, my Guy. At Guy's appearance, who must have been waiting for him in the inn's entryway before, Kakashi decided to end the phone call with Naruto there. He shortly communicated him the remaining business. Well then, soon we'll set forth towards home. Yeah, nice to talk with you. At few words from Naruto, a little smile escaped from Kakashi. No, it was a nice holiday. Kakashi turned around, quitting the phone call quietly, and promptly asked Guy, what's the matter? Well, if the sun sets before we return to the village, Mirai will get angry. Saying so, Guy made a worried face. For me, it'd be alright even if we stopped one night more, but... At Guy's words, Kakashi nodded. Yeah. Also, our hometown hot springs will be nice after a long while. Do you want to go? But Mirai... Guy pondered, crossing his arms. At that rate, while she was waiting for the phone call to end, maybe Mirai would get extremely nervous. Kakashi thought something like that. Was my phone call that long? Well, yeah. To the point that Mirai began rewriting the roadmap without a word. Did she get so much angry? While saying so, the two went back to Mirai. Kakashi and Guy were going through the hallway one next to the other. Actually, she's doing well. Guy muttered, sighing, after a short silence. Of course, he was talking about Mirai. Yeah. Kakashi answered, smiling. Then, they began talking for no particular reason. Because seeing Mirai's figure, who had oddly met face to face with an enemy that one might call her own destiny in the land of hot water, Kakashi had a thought. The man called Ryuki was arrested, but it looks like that whenever he recognized a person who has lost a person who suffered from an incurable disease or a relative, he took away their money with deceiving words. Such an atrocious thing, and even Mirai. Maybe. However, if I had been told that there was a hot spring that could cure any kind of injury, my heart would have trembled too, I thought. At Kakashi's words, Guy began laughing out loud. Are you still worrying about me? How many years have passed since that? Unlike Guy, who was laughing large-heartedly, Kakashi had still a meek face. However, if there was a hot spring that could heal your leg, Kakashi, cut it out. Guy continued, looking straight in front of him. I'm living now. I can talk with you like this. That's enough. Wear one or two legs, after all. Instead, you're always by my side, aren't you? That's something I wish the most. Guy made a gentle face. Seeing him, also Kakashi nodded quietly. There, Kakashi-san, Guy-san, what are you doing? We won't come back home within today like this, you know? Mirai, who was looking at Kakashi and Guy's figure and waiting, called out to them. What should I do? Night will fall our way back, you know? Urged by her severe tone, Kakashi's eyes wandered about. Mage, that's true, but we could stop another night in a post town on the way today, or something. He answered, turning his eyes away as if to escape from Mirai's gaze, who was looking fixedly at him. Thereupon, all right, let's do it. Shall we take it easy? Saying so, Mirai opened the road map that showed the trace of having been rewritten. On it, there was already written the plan of stopping by in that night, and the arrival to Konoha the afternoon of the day after. I'll contact the village later. While saying so, Mirai showed a gentle smile. At that appearance of Mirai, also Kakashi instinctively made a smiling face. Well, I'll leave it to you to keep guarding us, too. That's right. We're on mission until we get back to the village. Guy clenched his fist firmly. Leave it to me, please. That's my specialty. Mirai answered, still smiling. Aiming at their hometown at the other side of the stream, the three's journey continued one night more. End of Konoha Shinden, Steam Ninja Scrolls. Thank you for listening. Remember to like and subscribe for lots more.